A stone giant has watched the stars for over 4,000 years. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monument to a lost science, its perfect alignment and unshakable strength defying simple explanation. By the end of this video, you will understand the hidden engineering and astronomical principles that allowed ancient builders to achieve what seems impossible today. We will uncover how they moved multi-ton blocks with pinpoint accuracy and why their creation has outlasted empires. What does it take to build something meant to last for eternity? To build for eternity, the architects first had to capture the sky. The ancient Egyptian night was a profound darkness, a vast and unpolluted canvas where the stars were not distant points of light, but living deities and divine guides. This was a world where heaven and earth were intimately linked, and the pyramids were the ultimate expression of that connection. Their near-perfect alignment to the four cardinal directions is not just an architectural feat, it is a celestial one. The precision with which the Great Pyramid faces true north is so exact that it rivals what modern engineers could achieve with advanced tools. This was not a happy accident. It was the result of a deep, sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, a science written in the stars. Renowned researchers like Giulio Magli have proposed a breathtaking theory that the ground layout of the three Great Pyramids at Giza is a deliberate mirror of the three stars in Orion's belt. This was not merely decoration, it was a spiritual map embedding the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife directly into the immutable patterns of the cosmos. So how did they translate this grand cosmic vision into stone with such staggering accuracy? They lacked magnetic compasses, which would have been useless for finding true geographic north. Instead, they turned their gaze to the circumpolar stars, the ones that never set, endlessly circling the celestial pole. Their method was one of breathtaking patience. They likely observed the simultaneous transit of two specific stars, watching as one rose and the other set, and bisecting the angle between them to pinpoint a perfect north-south line. To make these observations, they used an ingenious instrument called a merkit, a simple yet powerful device that was the forerunner to the astrolabe. It consisted of a horizontal bar with a plumb line, allowing a priest astronomer to sight along a star's path. Night after night, year after year, they would track these movements, slowly and meticulously establishing the sacred axes upon which a civilization would build its most enduring legacy. This celestial precision was the indispensable first step, the invisible foundation of strength and alignment that we still marvel at today. But capturing the sky was only half the battle. The other half lay deep within the earth itself. To build for eternity, you must first choose the right stones. Far from the rising pyramids, in the quarries of Tura and Aswan, an equally profound science was taking place. Under the relentless sun, workers were not just cutting rock, they were reading it. They passed over flawed and fragile stone, seeking out only the most perfect limestone and the hardest granite. This was not a random selection. It was a deliberate, sophisticated understanding of geology, a knowledge that modern experts like geologist James A. Harrell confirmed was remarkably advanced. The builders chose dense, crystalline limestone from the Mokattam Formation for the pyramid's core because it offered a perfect marriage of workability and immense strength. For the interior chambers bearing the greatest loads, they sought out fine-grained granite, a material incredibly resistant to both the crushing weight from above and the subtle shifts of the earth below. How did they free these perfect blocks from the living bedrock? They worked with the stone, not just against it. They would drill a series of holes along a stone's natural fracture line, then insert dry wooden wedges. Next, they poured water onto the wood. As the wedges soaked, they expanded with tremendous force, cleanly splitting the granite or limestone along a predetermined plane. This simple yet brilliant technique showcases a deep knowledge of material properties, using the natural world's own forces to their advantage. This careful, deliberate selection process ensured that every single block, from the smallest to the largest, possessed the inherent strength to withstand millennia of weight, wind, and even seismic activity. It was this geological wisdom that formed the unshakable foundation of the pyramid. Yet, choosing the perfect stone was one thing. Moving these multi-ton giants across the desert was an engineering puzzle of a completely different scale. With the perfect stone selected, the next challenge was one of almost impossible precision. A pyramid's foundation must be perfectly level, a task that seems monumental on the Giza Plateau's uneven bedrock. Without our modern tools, the ancient engineers turned to one of the most fundamental forces on Earth, water. They likely dug a grid of shallow trenches across the entire building site and filled them with water. Because water always finds its own level, the top of each trench gave them a continuous horizontal reference line across the vast, rocky expanse. This simple yet brilliant method allowed them to painstakingly chip the bedrock down to a uniform plane. Experimental archaeology, led by researchers like Lehner, has shown this technique was astoundingly effective. The Great Pyramid's base is leveled to within less than 1 inch over its entire 13-acre area. This was not merely for aesthetic perfection. A perfectly level foundation was absolutely critical for ensuring the pyramid's immense weight, millions of tons of stone, would be distributed evenly. Any significant dip or rise in the foundation would create a point of concentrated stress, a weakness that, over millennia, could have led to a catastrophic shift or even a collapse. Their meticulous leveling was a direct investment in eternity. The same obsessive precision extended to their directional alignment, ensuring the pyramid's 4 corners pointed perfectly north, south, east, and west. They did not set this alignment once and forget it. As the pyramid rose course by course, they continually checked and corrected their work. They likely used a method involving casting shadows from a central pole or making fresh observations of the circumpolar stars, subtly adjusting the placement of each new layer of stone to compensate for any tiny deviations. This constant vigilance, this refusal to let errors accumulate, is what separates a temporary structure from a permanent one. Why invest such incredible effort in steps that would ultimately be buried and hidden from view? Because the ancient builders understood a profound truth, that true strength is not built from the top down, but from the ground up. Every perfectly placed stone in the soaring structure above relied entirely on the invisible, flawless foundation below. This groundwork set the stage for the most visually stunning phase of the project, the intricate art of placing each multi-ton block with breathtaking accuracy. The true genius of the pyramid builders reveals itself not in the stones themselves, but in the empty space around them. Moving a 2.5-ton block of limestone is one thing, but lifting it hundreds of feet into the air is a challenge of an entirely different magnitude. The solution was both simple and monumental: the ramp. Envision a landscape transformed, with massive earthen ramps steadily ascending towards the unfinished peak. Thousands of workers, a coordinated human machine, hauled these multi-ton blocks on wooden sledges. The air would have been thick with dust and the sound of labor, a relentless effort that turned raw stone into a soaring monument. While no single ramp design has been conclusively proven, the theories proposed by Egyptologists like Bob Brier paint a picture of remarkable ingenuity. One compelling idea is the straight ramp, a single, massive causeway built directly against one face of the pyramid, growing in height alongside the structure. Another is the spiral ramp, winding its way around all four sides, providing continuous access to the rising courses. There is also the zigzagging ramp, a less steep option that would have switched back and forth across a single face. Each design presents its own advantages and logistical puzzles, a testament to the sophisticated problem-solving of the ancient engineers. Recent archaeological discoveries have added crucial details to this picture. At the alabaster quarries of Hatnub, researchers found the remains of a ramp system flanked by staircases and post holes. This suggests a highly organized operation where teams used ropes and sledges to pull massive stones up steep slopes. The secret to their success may have been friction reduction. It is likely they poured water onto the sand or clay path ahead of the sledge. This simple act would have drastically reduced the pulling force required, allowing a smaller team to move a block that would otherwise be immovable. Calculations based on these methods are staggering. A well-organized workforce leveraging these ramps and lubricated paths could have placed a new block every few minutes. This relentless, efficient pace was the only way a project of this scale could be completed within a single pharaoh's lifetime. How did they achieve such a colossal logistical feat without the wheel being widely used for transport? The answer lies in their profound understanding of basic physics. They mastered the inclined plane, using the ramp's gentle slope to multiply their own effort. They turned an impossible vertical lift into a manageable, gradual ascent. This was not just brute force, it was applied intelligence on an epic scale. Every stone set in place was a testament to a system that seamlessly integrated human labor with the fundamental laws of the physical world. Yet, placing the stones was only part of the story. The true magic was in how they locked them all together. The pyramid's form is a masterclass in structural stability, a shape that seems to defy the very force of gravity it so perfectly harnesses. Its iconic geometry is not merely an aesthetic choice but a fundamental engineering solution to an immense problem: how to support the staggering weight of over 2 million stone blocks. Every ounce of that mass is channeled by the sloping sides down and out, spreading the load evenly across the vast 13-acre foundation and deep into the solid bedrock below. This brilliant distribution of force prevents any single point from bearing a dangerous concentration of stress, the kind that would inevitably lead to cracking or a sudden, catastrophic collapse. This same principle of using a broad base to disperse weight is why modern engineers design massive dams and towering skyscrapers with similar profiles. The pyramid's specific angle, approximately 52 degrees, is itself a key to its resilience. Structural analysis reveals this particular slope creates an optimal balance, making the structure incredibly resistant to being pushed over by lateral forces like powerful desert winds or even the shuddering of an earthquake. It behaves not as a collection of separate blocks, but as a single monolithic unit, a mountain of stone that moves as one. This external genius is mirrored by the intricate design inside. Look at the king's chamber deep within the heart of the pyramid. Its ceiling is not a single slab, but a masterpiece of corbelling, where each layer of stone overlaps the one below, stepping inward until they meet at the top. This creates a ceiling that is essentially self-supporting, transforming the crushing downward force from the millions of tons above into outward thrust, which is then safely contained by the surrounding masonry. Why did the builders settle on this specific, majestic shape? It appears they possessed an intuitive yet profound grasp of load-bearing mechanics. They understood that the goal was not to resist compression, but to use it to design a structure that would grow stronger and more compact under its own immense weight, settling rather than fracturing over the centuries. This internal compression acts like a continuous, gentle hug, locking the entire edifice together. This inherent strength, born from its perfect geometry, was then perfected by the microscopic precision with which each block was set into place. The microscopic gaps between the stones hold a secret just as profound as the blocks themselves. While the pyramid appears to be a solid mass of stone, it is actually a carefully engineered system of individual pieces, and the key to its longevity lies in the incredibly thin layers of mortar binding them. This was not a simple glue. Materials scientists have analyzed this ancient mortar, finding it to be a specific mixture of gypsum and lime. Its most remarkable property was that it was deliberately formulated to be weaker than the surrounding limestone blocks. This seems counterintuitive. Why use a weaker bond? The answer is pure genius. This softer mortar acted as a cushion, a sacrificial layer that could absorb and redistribute the immense stresses building within the pyramid. As temperatures soared during the day and plummeted at night, the entire structure would expand and contract. Over centuries, the ground itself would subtly shift during seismic events. A rigid, super-strong mortar would have transmitted these forces directly into the stone, causing it to crack and shatter. The weaker mortar, however, allowed for microscopic movements, flexing and compressing to prevent catastrophic rigid fractures. It functioned precisely like the expansion joints we see in modern bridges and skyscrapers today, a technology we thought was a recent innovation. The blocks themselves were masterpieces of interlocking geometry. Far from being simple cubes, many were cut with irregular, slightly convex surfaces, or with dovetail joints that fit together like a three-dimensional puzzle. When two such blocks were pushed together, their uneven faces created immense friction and mechanical lock, resisting any lateral shifting. A perfectly smooth surface could slide, but these interlocking shapes transformed a stack of blocks into a single, cohesive mass. Why did the Egyptians prioritize this flexible, interlocking system over a rigid one? It reveals a sophisticated understanding of dynamic loads. They were not building a static sculpture. They were creating a living structure that needed to breathe, settle, and withstand the test of time. They knew that true strength was not about being unyielding, but about being resilient, about having the ability to absorb energy and move without breaking. This combination of a flexible binder and mechanical locking was the final, invisible ingredient that transformed millions of separate stones into a unified, resilient monolith. This philosophy of managing immense internal forces did not stop at the outer casing. It reached its most critical expression deep within the pyramid's beating heart. Deep within the pyramid's stone heart, the air grows cool and the passages narrow. This is not a simple tomb, but a labyrinth of profound engineering. The most breathtaking of these internal spaces is the Grand Gallery, a soaring corridor with walls that rise in 7 overlapping steps. This Corbelled design is far more than decoration. Each inward step cleverly redirects the unimaginable weight of the masonry above, channeling it outwards and away from the fragile corridor below, preventing it from being crushed into dust. The same principle of stress management reaches its peak directly above the king's chamber. Here, the builders constructed a series of 5 compartments, now called the relieving chambers. They stacked massive granite beams one atop the other with small empty spaces between them. Why create this complex overhead structure? These spaces and beams were not merely for storage. They formed a sophisticated shock absorption system. The empty gaps allowed the granite beams to flex and redistribute the titanic forces pressing down from the pyramid's core. Instead of a single, solid ceiling bearing the entire load and inevitably cracking, this multi-layered design spread the pressure across multiple points, effectively shielding the chamber's vulnerable roof from collapse. Every corridor, from the steeply ascending passage to the long descending one, was aligned with this same meticulous care for structural continuity. Their precise angles were calculated to ensure the weight flowing down from above was seamlessly transferred around these openings, maintaining the pyramid's monolithic strength. The choice of materials was equally deliberate. The builders used rugged granite for the high stress points like the chamber walls and ceiling beams, while relying on the workable limestone for less critical areas. This was a tailored approach to load distribution, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of how different materials perform under pressure. How could ancient builders possibly anticipate the complex stress patterns within a structure of this scale? It suggests a knowledge born from generations of observation and experimentation, a deep familiarity with the behavior of stone under immense weight. This intricate internal network functioned much like the arches in a Gothic cathedral, a system designed not to resist force, but to gracefully guide it along predetermined paths, transforming a potential weakness into a source of enduring strength. This hidden reinforcement reveals a final, brilliant layer of their architectural philosophy. The pyramid we see today is a skeleton, a rugged core stripped of its original skin. When new, it would have blazed under the Egyptian sun, a mountain of polished white. This was not the rough stone of the inner core, but a breathtaking shell of flawless Chura limestone, cut with such precision that the seams between blocks were often thinner than a credit card. These casing stones were more than a dazzling facade. They were a critical component of the pyramid's structural resilience. Each one was a trapezoid, cut at a slight angle so that it locked perfectly with its neighbors, creating a continuous, seamless surface that sloped precisely toward the apex. This interlocking shell did more than just reflect light. It distributed external forces like wind and driving rain evenly across the entire surface, preventing any single point from being worn down. It acted as a protective barrier, shielding the rougher, more vulnerable core blocks from the direct assault of the elements. Beneath this brilliant skin, the internal core was a masterpiece of organized chaos. It was not a solid mass of perfect stone, but a carefully assembled framework of large, rougher blocks, tightly packed and bound with that sacrificial mortar. This core was the muscle designed for one primary purpose, to bear the immense compressive weight of the entire structure. While the casing managed the outside world, the core handled the relentless, downward force of gravity. The two systems worked in perfect harmony, a dual-layer defense against time itself. The loss of most casing stones over centuries, often quarried for other buildings, has exposed this inner framework to the elements. Yet, even after millennia of wind and sand, the core stands firm. Why invest such incredible effort in a polished shell that served both aesthetic and structural roles? The answer reveals a philosophy where beauty and strength were inseparable. The gleaming white exterior was a spiritual statement, a representation of the sun god's rays touching the earth, while its physical perfection sealed and protected the monument within. This holistic approach ensured the pyramid was not merely strong but complete, a perfect integration of form, function, and enduring faith. The meticulous care taken with both the visible and the hidden parts speaks to a culture that built for the ages, understanding that true preservation requires guarding against every threat, from the crushing weight of stone to the gentle, persistent caress of the wind. The stones themselves seem to whisper a language of numbers. Beyond the physical engineering, the Great Pyramid's dimensions encode a mathematical mystery that has captivated scholars for centuries. If you take the pyramid's original perimeter and divide it by twice its height, the result is a number startlingly close to pi, approximately 3.1416. This is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, a constant the ancient Egyptians are not widely credited with formalizing. How could this be a coincidence? One compelling theory suggests it emerged from their primary building tool, the wheel. The number of times a wheel rotates over a certain distance is directly tied to pi. It is possible that by measuring the revolutions of a cylindrical drum used to transport materials, they inadvertently embedded this fundamental constant into the very scale of their structure. The intrigue deepens with the golden ratio, a proportion of about 1.618, often found in nature's most harmonious designs, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. Some researchers, like John Taylor, have pointed out that the pyramid's proportions, particularly the relationship between its apothem, the line from the apex to the midpoint of a base side, and half its base length, seem to approximate this divine number. While modern Egyptology debates whether this was a conscious design choice or a byproduct of their chosen slope angle, the correlation itself is remarkable. This was not abstract mathematics for its own sake. These precise proportions were the key to the pyramid's legendary stability. The specific angles and base-to-height ratio created a shape that optimally channeled gravitational and seismic forces straight down into the Earth. Even a minor deviation in the base length or the slope would have created points of concentrated stress, weaknesses that, over 4,000 years, would have been exploited by wind, rain, and tremors. Why would builders go to such lengths to encode these complex relationships? It points to a worldview where the universe itself was seen as an orderly, mathematical creation. By building these principles into their pharaoh's eternal home, they were not just constructing a tomb, they were aligning it with the cosmic order, creating a microcosm of a perfectly balanced world. This mathematical harmony was the silent, invisible blueprint that guided every physical decision from the quarry to the sky. The sun was the ultimate celestial clock, and the pyramids were its grandest dial. During the equinoxes, when day and night hang in perfect balance, the Great Pyramid's shadow would fall with such precision that it could mark the turning of the seasons. One face would be fully illuminated while its opposite lay in deep shadow, a biannual event that transformed the structure into a colossal solar calendar. This was not merely an observation, it was the heartbeat of a civilization. Farmers depended on these solar markers to know when to plant and when to harvest, while priests used them to schedule the sacred festivals that maintained cosmic order. The pyramid's alignment with the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year, further embedded it within the solar cycle. On the summer solstice, the sun would set precisely between two of the Giza pyramids when viewed from the Sphinx, a deliberate line of sight that connected architecture with the heavens. This solar integration went beyond the external form. Deep within the Great Pyramid, narrow shafts, once thought to be only for ventilation, point directly toward specific stars. The southern shaft from the King's Chamber targets the constellation of Orion, but the northern one aligns with Alpha Draconis, a star whose position was intimately tied to the solar cycle in ancient Egyptian cosmology. Researchers like Robert Bovell have suggested these shafts served a dual purpose, guiding the pharaoh's soul to the eternal stars while also marking key solar events in the sky. How did this solar harmony enhance the pyramid's perceived power? For the ancient Egyptians, the sun god Ra died each evening and was reborn each morning. By aligning the pharaoh's eternal resting place with this cycle of death and rebirth, the pyramid became a machine of resurrection, a guarantee that the king would journey with the sun and live forever. This profound symbolic connection to eternal order may well have inspired the obsessive precision in its construction, a spiritual imperative that drove the physical execution. A structure meant to facilitate a soul's journey to the stars had to be as perfect and enduring as the cosmos themselves. This celestial choreography required tools of astonishing accuracy, leading us to wonder about the very instruments that translated cosmic vision into stone. Precision on this scale demanded tools of equal refinement. Deep within the workshops, artisans wielded copper chisels and heavy stone hammers, their ears tuned to the distinct ring of sound that indicated a clean fracture versus a flawed one. Their true genius, however, lay in the simple, elegant instruments they used to guide their hands. The plumb bob, a weighted string, provided an unwavering reference to the vertical, ensuring every wall rose perfectly straight. The square, a basic right angle, guaranteed that corners met with exactness. With these fundamental tools, they achieved tolerances so tight that the joints between many stones are mere millimeters wide. To maintain this accuracy across the vast 13-acre base, they relied on consistent measurement. Standardized rods of wood or stone, likely verified against a Royal Cubit Master standard, allowed teams working hundreds of feet apart to build in perfect harmony. Sighting instruments, perhaps a simple notched stick or a precursor to the alabaster tool found at Giza, enabled them to transfer level lines and alignments over immense distances, creating a unified structure from countless individual parts. Experimental archaeologists have put these tools to the test, recreating the methods with replicas. The results are humbling. A skilled craftsperson using a copper chisel, a stone hammer, and a plumb bob can dress a block of limestone to a surface as smooth as modern machine work. This reveals a profound truth. The true precision was not in the tools themselves, but in the generations of knowledge and unerring skill held in the hands of the artisans. This human expertise was systematized through geometric templates and detailed written records. Templates, perhaps made of wood or stone, would have standardized the complex shapes needed for cornerstones or the interlocking casing blocks, ensuring every piece, no matter where it was cut, would fit seamlessly into the grand design. Papyrus scrolls, like the recently discovered Wadi al-Jarf logbook, detail the daily organization of materials and labor, showing a project managed with bureaucratic efficiency. What does this technological sophistication say about the society that built it? Such refinement was only possible because of an unprecedented organizational structure. The Pyramid Project was not a disorganized mob, but a highly structured endeavor that mobilized and sustained tens of thousands of people. It required a bureaucracy capable of managing quarries, organizing shipments along the Nile, feeding a small city of workers, and housing master craftsmen. This was a society that could channel its collective intelligence and labor toward a single, monumental goal for generations, a testament to a cultural vision powerful enough to align an entire civilization with the patience of the stars themselves. The sheer scale of the Pyramid Project required a social machine as finely tuned as its astronomical alignments. This was not a project built on the backs of a suffering mass, but by a rotating army of skilled hands. During the Nile's annual flood, when farming was impossible, thousands of farmers would arrive at the plateau. They came not as forced laborers, but as conscripts fulfilling a duty to their god-king, a service for which they were compensated with food, drink, and a sense of profound communal purpose. Archaeological discoveries at worker villages like Hayt el Ghurab paint a vivid picture of their lives. These were not slums, but organized settlements with barracks, bakeries capable of feeding thousands, and facilities for curing fish. The bones found there tell a story of a workforce that consumed large amounts of meat and received medical care for significant injuries, evidence of a society that invested in the well-being of its builders. This workforce was meticulously organized into teams, each with a specific role. There were the quarrymen who understood the grain of the stone, the haulers who mastered the physics of sledges and ramps, the masons who dressed each block with breathtaking accuracy, and the elite craftsmen who executed the final, precise placements. These teams, often named with pride like friends of Khufu or the drunkards of Menkaura, worked in a coordinated relay, passing the stone from the quarry to its final resting place hundreds of feet in the air. How did they manage the logistics of feeding and housing so many people without modern technology? The answer lies in a sophisticated bureaucracy that used the earliest known forms of administrative writing. Overseers kept detailed records on papyrus, tracking the delivery of tools, the output of quarries, and the rations for each team. This was project management on an epic scale, ensuring that the right resources reached the right people at the right time, preventing the entire endeavor from descending into chaos. The true secret to the pyramid's quality, however, was not just in its organization, but in the deep expertise of its people. A master mason did not learn his trade in a single season. He would have spent a lifetime honing his skill, learning to read the stone, to strike it at just the right angle with his copper chisel and stone hammer. This knowledge was a precious inheritance passed from father to son, a living tradition that ensured each generation built upon the wisdom of the last. It was this human element, this synergy of disciplined organization and generations of craftsmanship, that transformed the raw potential of limestone and granite into a form meant to last for eternity. A pyramid does not fight the desert, it has learned to move with it. This ancient structure possesses a resilience that comes from an intimate dialogue with the natural world, a design philosophy that anticipates stress rather than simply resisting it. When the ground trembles during an earthquake, the pyramid's immense mass and broad base work to its advantage. Its low center of gravity and the sheer weight of millions of tons of stone make it incredibly difficult to topple. Seismic waves pass through its compact, monolithic form, their energy dissipating harmlessly into the vast foundation below. It behaves less like a building and more like a mountain, an integral part of the bedrock itself. This seismic wisdom is written into its very shape. Look closely at the base and you might notice a subtle but brilliant feature. The sides are not perfectly flat planes. They possess a slight convex curve, a gentle bulge that is virtually invisible to the naked eye but critical to the pyramid's stability. As the structure settled over centuries under its own colossal weight, this curvature allowed the stones to compress inward toward the center, tightening the entire structure like a knot instead of splaying outward and fracturing under the strain. The desert itself presents a daily trial by fire and ice. Under the brutal sun, the outer stones would expand with the heat, only to contract sharply during the cold nights. This relentless cycle of thermal expansion could shatter a more rigid structure, but the pyramid was designed to breathe. The flexible, sacrificial mortar between the blocks acted as a cushion, absorbing these microscopic movements. The interlocking, irregular shapes of the core blocks created a dynamic internal lattice that could shift and settle without losing its overall cohesion. Even the most violent weather events were accounted for. During rare but powerful flash floods, the pyramid's sloping sides and angled corners would split the torrents of water, channeling the force around its base rather than allowing it to erode the foundation. The same geometry defies the scouring winds of sandstorms, encouraging air to flow smoothly around its form instead of creating turbulent, destructive eddies. This is not a static monument, but a dynamic system in perfect equilibrium with its environment. What can modern engineers, with all our advanced materials and computer models, learn from this 4,000-year-old design? The lesson is profound, that true durability is not about creating an unyielding fortress, but about designing with flexibility and foresight, about understanding the forces of nature well enough to work with them, not against them. This inherent toughness, born from environmental harmony, points to a deeper question: what cultural conviction could inspire a people to build with such an unwavering focus on eternity? This spiritual imperative for perfection transformed every technical decision into a sacred act. The pyramid was far more than a tomb. It was a cosmic engine, a machine designed to harness the fundamental forces of the universe to propel the pharaoh's soul into the afterlife. At the heart of this design was the concept of Maat, the principle of divine order, truth, and balance that stood in opposition to chaos. The pyramid's flawless geometry and unwavering alignment were a physical manifestation of this principle, a bulwark against the formless void, ensuring the cosmos would remain in harmony. Its very shape was a deliberate echo of the Benben, the primordial mound of creation that, according to myth, first emerged from the waters of chaos at the dawn of time. By building this sacred form, the Egyptians were recreating the moment of creation itself, linking the pharaoh's rebirth directly to the genesis of the universe. This spiritual function demanded an unprecedented level of precision. A single misaligned block or a foundation that was not perfectly level was not just an engineering flaw. It was a metaphysical crack through which chaos could seep, potentially derailing the king's entire celestial journey. This is why the casing stones were polished to a mirror finish, why the corners pointed with such exactness to the cardinal directions, and why the internal chambers were built to withstand eons of pressure. The structure had to be as perfect and eternal as the cosmos it represented. The deepest insights into this purpose come from the pyramid texts, the oldest known religious writings in the world, inscribed on the walls of the inner chambers. These spells describe the pyramid explicitly as a ramp, a launching platform for the soul. One passage directs the deceased king, "Take this your bread, it belongs to you, that you may go up upon it to the sky." The narrow shafts targeting Orion and the pole star were not just astronomical sightlines. They were conceived as physical pathways for the king's ba, or soul, to ascend and join the circumpolar stars, the imperishable ones. How did these profound religious convictions directly influence the builders? The choice of specific materials, the precise 52-degree angle, the entire logistical nightmare of construction, was all sanctified by this ultimate goal. The granite for the burial chamber was not just strong, it was symbolic of the enduring nature of the afterlife. The alignment with Orion's belt was not just a map, it was a destination. This seamless fusion of spiritual vision and technical execution created a structure that was both physically and metaphysically robust, a testament to a culture that saw no division between the engineer and the priest, between the law of gravity and the will of the gods. This worldview of a unified cosmos reflected in stone may well explain the mysterious alignments this structure shares with other sacred sites across the ancient world. Yet the drive to build in harmony with the heavens was not unique to the Nile. Scattered across the globe, other ancient cultures raised their own stone giants, each speaking a similar language of celestial alignment in a different dialect. On the windswept Salisbury Plain in England, the Great Circle of Stonehenge stands as a testament to a different kind of astronomical precision. Its massive sarsen stones are arranged to frame the rising sun on the summer solstice, a dramatic event that still draws thousands to witness the dawn light pierce the heart of the monument. Unlike the solid, mountainous form of the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge is an open ring, a horizon-based observatory that tracked the complex cycles of the sun and moon over centuries. Across the Atlantic, the Maya of Mesoamerica built towering stepped pyramids, like the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. During the equinoxes, the play of light and shadow creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase, a stunning fusion of architecture, astronomy, and mythology. Even the solitary moai of Easter Island, with their backs to the sea, are now understood to have been carefully positioned on ceremonial platforms that aligned with the rising points of certain stars, connecting the ancestors to the celestial realm. These sites, separated by vast oceans and millennia, seem to whisper a shared human impulse. They all demonstrate a profound observation of the skies, a desire to anchor their most sacred structures to the predictable rhythms of the cosmos. Archaeologists and researchers like Graham Hancock have long debated the meaning of these parallels. Do they point to a single, lost source of knowledge that spread across the world, or do they represent the beautiful phenomenon of convergent evolution, where different cultures, faced with the same fundamental questions about their place in the universe, independently arrived at similar architectural solutions? The evidence tilts heavily toward independent discovery, shaped by local environments and beliefs. The Egyptians had access to vast quantities of fine limestone and granite, allowing for their smooth, geometric perfection. The builders of Stonehenge worked with the monumental sarsen stones available on their plain, creating a post and lintel structure. The Maya, building in dense jungle, used a core of rubble and earth faced with cut stone to create their steep, stepped profiles. Each culture used the materials at hand to solve the same core problem: how to build something enduring that reflected their understanding of the world. What do these global examples teach us about the common threads of ancient engineering? They reveal a universal human genius, an ability to observe natural laws and apply them with remarkable ingenuity. Whether it was the precise solar alignments at Stonehenge, the encoded calendrical cycles in a Maya pyramid, or the stellar targeting of the Great Pyramid, the goal was the same: to create a permanent gateway between the earthly and the divine, a project that continues to captivate and inspire us today. The echoes of Giza's stone giants did not fade with the fall of the pharaohs. They traveled across the sea, inspiring the very civilizations that would one day become the architects of the Western world. The ancient Greeks, who stood in the shadow of the pyramids centuries after their completion, wrote of them with a sense of awe, viewing them not as primitive tombs but as the ultimate expression of human ingenuity and geometric perfection. This reverence for Egyptian knowledge deeply influenced Greek thinkers like Thales and Pythagoras, who are said to have studied there, bringing back mathematical and philosophical concepts that would form the bedrock of classical learning. It was this fusion of ideas that laid the groundwork for the architectural triumphs of Greece itself. The Parthenon, while stylistically distinct, embodies the same obsessive pursuit of precision. Its columns curve imperceptibly to correct optical illusions, and its platform bows slightly to manage weight distribution, principles that resonate with the invisible genius of the pyramid's foundation. When the Romans rose to power, they were the ultimate practical engineers, and they recognized a good idea when they saw one. They adopted the Egyptian mastery of stone and scale, adapting it for their aqueducts, colossal domes, and monumental arches. The revolutionary use of concrete allowed them to build on an even grander scale, yet the underlying logic of channeling immense weight down through sturdy, broad-based structures is a direct inheritance from that ancient Nile Valley science. How did this knowledge survive the collapse of empires and the long descent into Europe's so-called Dark Ages? The thread was kept alive through fragile papyri, precious copied manuscripts, and robust oral traditions within monastic and scholarly communities. The meticulous stonework of Romanesque and later Gothic cathedrals, with their soaring vaults designed to transfer loads outward to buttresses, is a spiritual and structural descendant of the pyramid's internal stress management. The master masons who built Chartres or Notre Dame may not have known the names of the Egyptian architects, but they were working from the same fundamental playbook, a playbook written in stone 4,000 years earlier. This legacy found a powerful new home during the Islamic Golden Age. Caliphs sponsored scholars who traveled to Egypt to study the pyramids firsthand, not as curiosities but as textbooks. Their intense study of these forms, combined with knowledge from Persia and India, led to breathtaking advances in algebra, trigonometry, and optics. The intricate geometric patterns adorning mosques from Cordoba to Baghdad are not merely decorative. They are a mathematical language, a direct result of this scholarly synthesis. It was through Arabic translations that many classical Greek texts, which themselves bore the imprint of Egyptian thought, were preserved and later reintroduced to a reawakening Europe, fueling the Renaissance. Why does this chain of influence matter today? The pyramid was more than a singular monument, it was a catalyst. It served as a permanent reference point, a repository of a forgotten science that successive cultures could observe, study, and interpret. Each civilization built upon that foundation, adapting the core principles of alignment, proportion, and load-bearing to their own materials and spiritual needs. The quest to understand how the ancients built for eternity directly shaped the world we live in now, from the domes of our Capitol buildings to the steel-framed skeletons of our skyscrapers. We are still decoding their wisdom, not with chisels and sledges, but with lasers and satellites, proving that their greatest achievement was not just the pyramid itself, but the endless curiosity it ignited in all who followed. A silent revolution is unfolding within the ancient stones, powered not by picks and chisels but by subatomic particles. International teams of scientists and archaeologists are now employing non-invasive technologies to see through the Great Pyramid for the very first time. The ScanPyramids project, a collaboration between universities in Egypt, France, and Japan, uses muon tomography. This technique relies on muons, cosmic ray particles that constantly rain down on Earth and can penetrate deep into rock. By placing sensitive detectors inside the pyramid's known chambers, researchers can measure how many muons pass through the stone. Areas with lower density, like hidden chambers or voids, allow more muons to pass through, revealing their shape and location as clearly as an X-ray reveals a bone. This cosmic vision has already yielded a staggering discovery, a massive void deep within the pyramid's core, now called the Big Void, stretching for over 100 feet. Its sheer size and precise orientation have ignited a fierce debate. Is it a structural feature designed to relieve weight from the Grand Gallery below, or is it an entirely undiscovered chamber, still sealed after 4,000 years? The technology does not yet reveal its contents, only its haunting presence, a ghost in the machine of the pyramid. Alongside muon scans, thermal imaging has provided its own clues. By measuring how quickly the limestone heats and cools in the sun, researchers have identified unexpected temperature anomalies, suggesting different building materials or hidden gaps behind the familiar facade. These high-tech probes are fundamentally changing our perception of the pyramid's design. They support emerging theories that the construction was not a single, rigid blueprint executed perfectly from the start. Instead, evidence now points to a dynamic, adaptive process. The builders may have worked in stages, pausing to assess the structural integrity of what they had built before proceeding higher. They could have revised their plans based on material availability, ground settlement, or even a change in the reigning pharaoh's vision. This idea of an evolving design challenges the romantic notion of a flawless, preordained plan and replaces it with something more human, a story of brilliant engineers solving problems in real time. To test these new ideas, a fascinating fusion of disciplines is taking place. Egyptologists are now working side by side with structural engineers and material scientists. They are creating incredibly detailed digital simulations to model how internal stresses would have flowed through the pyramid as each new course of stone was added. Other teams are building precise physical scale models to test different ramp configurations, analyzing the energy expenditure and manpower required for each design. These collaborations are revealing the gaps in our own modern understanding. While we can model the physics, we are still unraveling the logistical genius that coordinated tens of thousands of people. We can locate a hidden void, but we cannot yet say with certainty why it is there. Every answer these cutting-edge methods provide seems to generate two new, more profound questions. They are not simply filling in the blanks of history. They are showing us that the map we thought was complete was missing entire continents of complexity. The pyramid, it seems, is not giving up its secrets easily, but with each new scan and simulation, we pull back another layer, inching closer to the minds of the architects who looked upon their work and saw that it was built to last. The Nile was more than a river, it was the lifeblood of the entire pyramid project. Each year, its predictable flood transformed the landscape, turning the desert's edge into a network of temporary waterways. This was not a disaster to be endured, but a seasonal resource to be mastered. The ancient engineers likely dug a series of canals directly from the Nile toward the Giza Plateau, creating a liquid highway for the heaviest stones. During the inundation, massive granite blocks from Aswan, some weighing over 60 tons, could be loaded onto enormous barges. These floating giants would then be towed with the current, drifting to within mere meters of the construction site at the height of the flood. This brilliant logistical move solved the single greatest transport problem, moving impossible weights across vast distances, by using the water's own buoyant force to do the heavy lifting. This hydraulic genius extended to the very ground the pyramid would stand upon. Before a single foundation stone was laid, the builders faced the task of leveling a 13-acre plot of uneven bedrock. Their solution was one of elegant simplicity. They are believed to have cut a grid of shallow trenches across the entire site and filled them with water. Using the immutable principle that water always finds its own level, they could use the surface of these canals as a universal reference line. By measuring down from this liquid plane to the bedrock, teams of workers could chip away at the high points until the entire foundation was perfectly flat to within a fraction of an inch. This method was so effective it rivals the accuracy of modern laser levels. Why go to such extraordinary lengths for a foundation that would be buried forever? Because they understood that the pyramid's immortality depended on it. A perfectly level base ensured the millions of tons of stone above would settle evenly, distributing the colossal compressive forces without creating a single point of weakness. The river's influence was also written in the pyramid's soul. Just as the Nile flowed from south to north, mirroring the Milky Way in the sky, the pyramid's causeways were aligned with the river, creating a physical and spiritual connection between the pharaoh's valley temple and his eternal home. The entire complex was a reflection of the cosmic order, with the Nile as its central, life-giving artery. Even water hidden from view was carefully managed. As they dug the foundation trench, they would have encountered groundwater, a constant threat that could soften the bedrock and undermine the structure. Evidence suggests they used clever drainage systems, perhaps simple sump pits and channels, to keep the construction site dry and stable. This holistic mastery of hydrology, from grand canals to subtle drains, reveals a culture that saw water not as an obstacle, but as a partner in their monumental task. It was this seamless integration of river, land, and sky that allowed them to build with a precision that still defies belief. The stones themselves were engineered for eternity on a molecular level. While the pyramid's shape defies gravity, its longevity is written in the very crystals that make up its limestone and granite. These rocks are not amorphous masses, they are intricate lattices of interlocking mineral crystals. In the dense Jura limestone, tightly packed calcite crystals create a surface that is incredibly difficult for wind and water to penetrate and break apart. The granite from Aswan takes this resilience even further. Its hard minerals, quartz and feldspar, are bound together in a chaotic, three-dimensional puzzle that resists cracking under immense pressure and scours away at a glacial pace. This inherent crystalline strength acts as a permanent shield against the desert's harsh conditions. The builders further enhanced this natural durability with their mortar. This was not a simple paste. Scientific analysis reveals it was a sophisticated gypsum-based mix, likely fortified with organic additives like egg white or animal glue. These natural polymers would have given the mortar a subtle flexibility, allowing it to absorb tiny shifts and vibrations without becoming brittle and powdering away. This ancient chemistry avoided a critical weakness of modern construction. By never using iron clamps or reinforcements, the Egyptians sidestepped the destructive cycle of rust. Iron expands as it corrodes, generating immense internal pressure that can shatter the strongest stone from within. The pyramid, built entirely of stone and mineral-based mortar, is free from this ticking clock. Over centuries, the exposed surfaces developed a protective skin. Wind-blown sand and minerals, combined with chemical reactions in the air, formed a hard, dark patina on the limestone. Far from being a sign of decay, this natural varnish actually seals the stone beneath, protecting it from further erosion. It is a self-healing armor that the builders may have witnessed on older structures and intuitively understood. Even the pyramid's internal climate was chemically managed. The tremendous thermal mass of the stone acts as a giant heat sink. During the scorching day, the outer layers heat up slowly, and at night they release that stored warmth gradually. This moderates the extreme temperature swings that cause materials to expand and contract rapidly, a process that fatigues and fractures less resilient structures over time. Why would a civilization without modern chemistry invest such effort in understanding material properties? Their selection was a masterclass in practical science. They chose rocks not just for their immediate strength, but for their long-term performance in a specific, demanding environment. They were playing a geological long game, selecting materials that would work in harmony with the desert itself. This profound chemical resilience, however, was only possible because of an economic engine powerful enough to quarry, transport, and refine these materials on an almost unimaginable scale. Such a monumental project required an economy of equal scale, a kingdom-wide machine dedicated to turning raw materials into a mountain of stone. Far beyond the quarries and ramps, a vast network of trade and supply stretched across the known world. Ships heavy with fragrant cedar from the forests of Lebanon sailed up the Nile, providing the essential timber for sledges, barges, and scaffolding. From the arid mines of the Sinai Peninsula came a steady flow of copper, the lifeblood of the toolmakers who forged the chisels that shaped every block. Caravans and boats brought fine gold and ivory from Nubia, not for the pyramid's core, but to adorn its temples and fuel the spiritual economy that justified the entire endeavor. This was not haphazard trade, but a state-sponsored system of resource acquisition, meticulously planned and executed. The true fuel for this economic engine, however, was food. To sustain the army of workers, the Egyptian state leveraged the incredible fertility of the Nile. The annual flood ensured bountiful harvests of emmer wheat and barley, creating a massive agricultural surplus. This surplus was the project's paycheck. Workers were compensated with bread, beer, and other rations, transforming grain into labor and stone. A sophisticated system of taxation and labor duty, known as the corvée, ensured a rotating, reliable workforce. Farmers would serve for a set period, often during the inundation when their fields were underwater, contributing their labor to the national project before returning home. This cyclical system prevented economic collapse and social unrest by not overburdening any single segment of the population for too long. The coordination of this entire operation fell to an army of scribes, the administrators who wielded the pen as powerfully as any mason wielded a hammer. Papyri like the Diary of Mortar, a logbook kept by an overseer, give us a stunningly detailed look into this bureaucracy. Mortar recorded the daily activities of his team as they transported limestone blocks from Chora to Giza, noting everything from the number of trips to the distribution of bread and beer. These records were the nervous system of the project, tracking inventory, managing logistics, and ensuring that every need was anticipated and met. This immense mobilization did more than build a pyramid, it forged a nation. The need to quarry more copper spurred innovations in mining. The challenge of moving stones inspired more efficient boat and sledge designs. The logistics of feeding thousands encouraged advances in accounting and storage. The entire kingdom's infrastructure, from its transport networks to its administrative framework, was strengthened and refined through the demands of the project. How did this economic mobilization shape the society that built the pyramids? It created a culture of unparalleled organization and collective purpose. Their success relied on a delicate balance, a model of strong central vision from the pharaoh and his architects, combined with decentralized, skilled execution by thousands of teams across Egypt. This synergy between a unified goal and localized expertise is what allowed for the breathtaking precision we have explored, proving that the pyramid's true foundation was not just in bedrock, but in the very fabric of a society organized to achieve the impossible. Deep within its stone heart, the pyramid holds a secret for surviving the Earth's own violence. When the ground trembles during an earthquake, the structure does not resist the motion, it moves with it. Its immense mass, millions of tons of stone, and incredibly broad base allow it to behave as a single, rigid unit. This means that when seismic waves pass through the ground, the entire pyramid shifts as one, sliding slightly with the Earth's movement rather than flexing and shearing apart. This unified motion drastically reduces the destructive shearing forces that would tear a more flexible building to pieces. The internal chaos of its core is equally vital. The irregular shapes of the blocks, packed together with that flexible mortar, create countless tiny interfaces and friction points. As vibrational energy travels upward, it is scattered and absorbed by this complex internal lattice. This creates a natural damping effect, much like the shock absorbers in a car, dissipating the energy of the quake as harmless heat and sound before it can build into a resonant, destructive frequency. Modern engineers have used sophisticated computer models to simulate earthquakes against the pyramid's digital twin. The results are clear. The geometry channels forces in a way that minimizes tensile stress, the kind of pulling apart that is concrete's greatest weakness. The pyramid's design ensures that nearly all the force remains compressive, pushing down, which stone handles with unparalleled strength. This inherent seismic wisdom explains why the Great Pyramid has withstood countless quakes over 4.5 millennia, while temples and monuments built much later on the same plateau have succumbed to rubble. What specific features make it so uniquely effective? It is the combination of that monolithic weight, the flexible joints, and the energy-absorbing core, all working in concert. This natural resilience was not an accident, but the ultimate expression of a design philosophy where strength was found not in rigid defiance, but in harmonious movement, a stone embodiment of the balance its builders revered. The pyramid's inner passages may have been a gateway to the stars as much as to the afterlife. those narrow shafts, often called air shafts, which extend from the king's and queen's chambers, were not merely for ventilation. They were precision-engineered sightlines targeting specific stars with profound cultural meaning. The northern shaft from the king's chamber, for example, aligned directly with Thuban, the pole star of the ancient Egyptians, a fixed point in the northern sky around which the heavens appeared to turn. Meanwhile, the southern shaft pointed toward the constellation of Orion, associated with the god Osiris and the star Sirius, whose heliacal rising just before dawn signaled the imminent flooding of the Nile. This celestial event was the cornerstone of the Egyptian calendar, marking the new year and dictating the agricultural cycle. By observing the precise moment these stars appeared in the shafts, priest astronomers could mark the passage of time with stunning accuracy, transforming the silent stone interior into a dynamic astronomical instrument. How did this scientific role elevate the pyramid's purpose beyond a tomb? It fused the practical needs of survival with the spiritual journey of the king. The same structure that safeguarded a pharaoh's remains also housed the knowledge needed to predict the seasons, ensuring the kingdom's prosperity and the correct timing of sacred rituals. This was a civilization that saw no division between tracking a star and serving a god. The observatory function reveals the pyramids as multifunctional centers of knowledge, where the rhythm of the cosmos was measured, recorded, and woven into the very fabric of daily life and eternal belief. This seamless integration of science and spirituality showcases a holistic worldview where every stone was laid with a dual purpose: to endure physically and to resonate celestially. The golden age of pyramid building did not last forever. As the Old Kingdom gave way to political uncertainty and economic strain, the immense, coordinated effort required for such monuments became unsustainable. The sophisticated knowledge that had once been common practice began to fade from memory. The pyramids of the later Middle Kingdom stand as a testament to this decline, constructed with mud-brick cores and crumbling limestone casings. They are smaller, less precisely aligned, and far less durable than their Giza predecessors. The geometrical perfection and structural mastery of the Fourth Dynasty had become a lost art. This was not merely a loss of scale, but a degradation of an entire system of knowledge. The specialized guilds of stonemasons, the priest astronomers who could pinpoint true north, and the master engineers who understood load distribution saw their roles diminish. The intricate logistics of feeding and housing a colossal workforce, managed by a vast bureaucratic machine, could no longer be mobilized. Why did such advanced expertise vanish? A shift in religious focus played a role, with pharaohs increasingly favoring hidden, rock-cut tombs in the Valley of the Kings to deter those who would disturb their rest. At the same time, the kingdom's resources were stretched thin by other priorities, and the specific quarries that had provided the finest limestone may have been depleted or become too difficult to access. Modern experiments have starkly illustrated what was lost. When teams have tried to move a 2.5-ton block using only ancient methods, they confront the sheer physicality and coordination involved. The precise angle of a ramp, the exact amount of water to reduce friction, the perfect strike of a stone hammer, these were skills honed over generations, passed from master to apprentice, not written down in manuals. We are left to piece together their methods from fragments of evidence and the silent testimony of the structures themselves. The disappearance of this knowledge carries a profound lesson for our own civilization. It shows that even the most advanced techniques are fragile, dependent on cultural stability, economic prosperity, and the continuous passage of expertise from one generation to the next. The mystery of the pyramids deepens when we realize that their greatest secret may not be how they were built, but why the ability to build them was so completely forgotten. These stone giants became the soul of a nation, a symbol of identity so powerful it has endured for 5,000 years. For the ancient Egyptians, they were far more than royal tombs. They were a declaration of cosmic order made permanent, a testament to a civilization that could command the very elements. This profound sense of pride did not end with the pharaohs. Long after the last pyramid was built, they remained a source of awe and inspiration, their image stamped onto coins by the conquering Romans and described in wonder by Greek historians. They were the original wonder of the world, a title that cemented their place in the global imagination as the ultimate benchmark of human potential. Their influence rippled outward through art and architecture, inspiring the obelisks that would later grace the piazzas of Rome and even the early designs for monumental structures in the modern world. As tales of their grandeur spread along trade routes, they became a tool of soft power, drawing diplomats, scholars, and merchants to Egypt, all of whom returned home with stories that enhanced the kingdom's reputation for near-divine ingenuity. In our own time, this cultural impact has transformed into a dynamic force that fuels both the economy and the global pursuit of knowledge. The pyramids are Egypt's most recognizable ambassadors, drawing millions of visitors each year who come to stand in their shadow and feel that timeless connection to the ancient world. This tourism is a vital economic engine, supporting countless livelihoods and funding the preservation of other priceless heritage sites. More importantly, they have become a universal classroom, a catalyst for scientific inquiry that brings together archaeologists, engineers, and astronomers in a shared mission to decode their secrets. Their iconic form is instantly recognizable in films, literature, and art, a constant reminder of humanity's capacity for greatness. How have they maintained such powerful relevance across such an unimaginable span of time? The answer lies in their unique duality. They are at once a deeply national symbol of Egyptian achievement and a universal icon belonging to all of humankind. Their cultural legacy is inextricably woven with the scientific mysteries we have been exploring. The same precision that ensured their physical survival also forged their enduring place in our collective consciousness, proving that a structure built to last for eternity must be rooted in both unshakable engineering and an idea powerful enough to capture the human spirit forever. The silent conversation between ancient stone and modern technology is only getting started. Artificial intelligence now sifts through terabytes of laser scan data, searching for patterns too subtle for the human eye to detect, hunting for the ghosts of hidden passages within the monument's digital twin. Three-dimensional modeling allows us to virtually reconstruct the pyramid block by block, testing theories about ramp placement and construction, sequencing in a digital sandbox without ever touching a single stone. These non-invasive sensors, from ground-penetrating radar to sophisticated thermal cameras, are creating a living health monitor for the ancient structure, mapping moisture content and internal stresses in real time. Despite these incredible tools, profound questions persist. The exact purpose of the massive void discovered deep within the Great Pyramid remains a tantalizing mystery. Is it a structural relief chamber, a sealed repository, or something entirely unexpected? We also still do not grasp the full scope of the builder's astronomical knowledge. Were the alignments part of a grander celestial map we have yet to decipher? To tackle these age-old puzzles, a new model of research has emerged. International teams, uniting Egyptian archaeologists with Japanese physicists and French engineers, are blending the intuitive wisdom of traditional excavation with the brute analytical power of cutting-edge science. This collaborative spirit is vital, not just for curiosity's sake, but for the pyramid's very survival. The same technologies that map hidden chambers also monitor the monument's response to modern threats. Rising humidity from a changing climate, the subtle vibrations from nearby urban growth, and the corrosive effects of pollution all pose invisible risks. The data gathered from Muon scans and thermal imaging is now being used to create predictive models for preservation, showing conservators exactly where to reinforce and how to intervene before damage becomes irreversible. What breakthroughs might the next decade unveil? We could finally understand the full construction timeline, or we might discover an untouched chamber, its contents speaking directly across the millennia. This ongoing quest, fueled by both reverence and relentless curiosity, ensures that the pyramids will never simply be solved. They will continue to pose new questions, to reveal fresh secrets, and to captivate the human imagination, just as their builders intended them to do for all time. The true legacy of the pyramids is not locked in their stone, but in the enduring question they pose to us across the ages. What does it take to build something that truly lasts? Our journey through their celestial alignments, their geological wisdom, and their seismic resilience reveals an answer. These were not just tombs, but masterpieces of integrated science, where the precision of the astronomer, the intuition of the engineer, and the vision of the spiritual guide were one and the same. This profound harmony between knowledge and belief, between the earth and the stars, is their greatest lesson. In an era of disposable materials and short-term thinking, the pyramids stand as a monumental reminder of the power of foresight, of building in dialogue with natural forces rather than against them. Their principles of perfect leveling, flexible joints, and optimal geometry offer timeless insights for our own architectural challenges, from creating sustainable cities to designing structures that can withstand a changing climate. They teach us that true durability is a philosophy, a commitment to quality that spans generations. Let these ancient giants inspire us to look up, to plan for the long term, and to remember that humanity's greatest achievements arise when we blend boundless curiosity with meticulous skill. We would love to hear which of these mysteries resonated most with you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you are eager to continue unraveling history's greatest enigmas with us, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for joining this exploration of endurance and alignment, where stone and science forever meet the